Hello, welcome everybody to podcast number 10, BVS Film Productions Final Cuts.
So this is episode number 10.
Number 10 of BVS Film Productions Final Cut podcast.
I'm happy to be here.
There we go. Me too. This is Denny, our cohort in
yes,
crime.
something like that. Yes.
Right. So, today we're going to kind of expand on what we talked about last week about podcasts and videos and podcasts and things of that nature, and talk about some of the ways that you can get space for a podcast, some additional specifications and specs you've looked up, and
actually more like things you need to think about.
Things you need to think about
if you're going to do a podcast or even a video that you want to post online.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some things there.
Right. But promotions, how to promote it with small videos and things.
Oh yeah, exactly. Sure. Yeah. So you were saying about the podcasts themselves. Today there's some trends that you kind of want to keep an eye on if you want to produce a podcast. Where do you fit in the podcast world?
Right. Yeah. Right. You have to know what you're looking to put out there. I strongly feel just jump in and try stuff. You plan all day long, and people do analysis to paralysis or whatever that's called. But, you just got to get out and try it, And it seems to be, once you get about, at least the customers we work with, once they get around 100 to 150 of these things under their belt, which usually takes a year or two, they start seeing followers, or one, Kick-Ass Boomers is the name of the group that comes in here, and we do their editing, and she's got 20,000 listeners, and she's a woman that works out of her house and sits in an easy chair with a mic just like this and interviews people about, that were boomers, the boomer generation that are still working and doing things and being, you should be on the show, Denny. Or you fit that, don't you? You're that. I was on it.
On the Boomer Show?
Yeah, the Boomer Show.
I
Kick-Ass
probably
Boomer
could
Show.
do that. My mind was drifting. I was just thinking about a hook of doing something totally unique that if you have that possibility, it makes for a great podcast. I was just thinking about a couple of years ago. I was in the mountains of Pennsylvania, and there's a woman who has a little property next to a farm. Yeah. But she's the Peacock Lady. I'm telling you, the Peacock Lady would be worldwide with followers, because when you drive up to this place, there are peacocks everywhere, and they make a really weird noise. But can you imagine?
What do they sound like?
I can't make that noise, and I'd be ashamed to do it. All right. But the thing is, it's a topic. It's of interest. Like, what does a peacock sound like? Well, you could hear it on her podcast if she had one, but she doesn't have one.
She doesn't have one.
But if she had one,
does she have a computer?
No, I didn't ask that. I got as far as the peacocks. Okay. All we wanted to do is my wife wanted to buy a peacock feather. So
she sells the feathers.
Yeah, she sells the feathers.
Okay.
But think about it. In your mind, you're painting a picture. Yeah. So if you have a topic where you can paint a picture.
I'm painting a picture of her pulling peacock feathers out of a real peacook as people order them.
Right, and you have a real angry peacock
and
right
then
after
you hear
that.
that noise that they make that you
They do.
Explain.
They're like roosters. They make noises during the course of the day.
Really?
And it's just really strange. It's almost like you're going to some strange sci-fi haunted movie of some sort where she lives. But it's kind of cool. And think about the visuals if you're doing a vodcast. You could be having a setting. Maybe you're not right out in the middle of the barnyard, but you could be in an area where there's a barn behind you because you're setting up your vodcast with a green screen.
All right, this is bugging me. Hold on a minute. Yeah. I'm going to try this. Hey, Siri, what does a peacock sound like?
Here's a peacock.
I told you.
Do I even have to say how much I love Siri?
You know what? Multiply that by like 4 of them, and then you've got like this little chorus thing going on. It's crazy. But that's what I'm talking about. You have a hook. You have a hook for your podcast, and then you can create not only your let's say your multi-minute podcast, but also short form video. I mean, short form is like insane right now, and everybody out there wants to get on to getting at least viral with what they do. This morning, a bear with its head in a bucket Okay, think about it. And it couldn't get its head out. So these guys were chasing it down and trying to get the bucket off of, but it's captured your interest. Now you're watching, you go, are they going to get the bucket off? Are they going to get the bucket off?
And not get mauled.
No, and the guys literally wrestled this. It wasn't a big bear. It wasn't like a grizzly.
Oh, but it was a little
like a little black bear, but still, you know. And it gets up there on Reels. And Reels, you know, when you get on to Instagram and you see Reels, the next one is all these people trying to be viral, and it's insane. But, but then go back to the topic. You know, if you want to go out there, what is your hook? And you want to go across different platforms. What are the different platforms that I could launch not only my podcast, but my short form videos?
Oh, gosh, you've got TikTok, you've got Instagram, you've got YouTube, or for videos, probably the main ones to think about. And if it's a business podcast, you can put them on LinkedIn. I can give you a prime example. We did I can't believe this happened. It was so weird. When we put our stuff up, we only get a handful of stuff, and we did this one that we put up last week, and it was with a pretty prominent speaker over the years. He's very famous, and we did a lot of work with him over the past 5 years. So we had this promo we put up. We were selling his documentary, and I wasn't even thinking of it, and I just put this up, and we got 25,000 people that looked at it in 5 hours. Unbelievable. And I'm thinking, what caused that to happen? You know, usually it was 100. Then I found out the actual speaker went in the first time. The guy that we did this for, he liked it. He's got 350,000 followers on LinkedIn.
Well, that helps.
So just by a little thing like that happening, it became semi-viral in 1 hour. And it sold documentaries, and it did all kind of crazy stuff. And then it went from those 25,000 down to 200 in like 1 day. So those are some interesting things that can happen if you get out there enough and you do enough things and you tag people in your
Well, that's the thing. And also short form. I mean, short videos now, under a minute is the way to go. You know, you don't want to be there talking or putting something together that lasts for 5 minutes. Our attention span and everyone else's is way too short these days. You want to get right to the point, right to the hook, right to the visual, or right to the message. And really get that out there,
Right. And in a podcast, so what we see for some of the really big ones that are being done out there is, they'll take a little excerpt from the podcast, little 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and they just chat about it. They'll put it in there, and they'll make that the main thing. And then with a quick call to action on the end, to see the full podcast, go here, or something of that nature. And they'll create like 5 or 6 of those and disseminate them throughout.
The social media.
Right. So that's a real interesting thing to do. And, that's something that we're really gearing up right now with, being a film production company, being able to do that.
Well, that's the thing you said is you really got to post consistently. You really have to continue putting them out there every day. Not necessarily every day, but it doesn't hurt. But at least weekly at the minimum to get a consistent message going out there as well.
Right. You put enough out that does help. Another thing that will help podcasters to get noticed is to go on other podcasts. That's probably one of the biggest ones is getting people to go and be guests on other podcasts, because now you're getting their audience and your audience involved, and you're getting video because you want to do your video and put it out there and get on a show that does have video, because that opens up a whole new avenue of people. Right?
And when you're thinking, too, about besides the podcast is the vodcast on the video end, think about, when you're recording, to record vertically. Because, even though we're not doing it today, you're recording vertically because how many people are using their phones morning till midnight? It's
so what we need to do is to find out the research of how many people are using their phones to look at podcasts versus computers.
Probably
much
out
higher.
There.
It's
it probably is.
Being a guest on someone else's podcast, I think, is really effective. It's one of those things that you're not only getting your audience involved, but you're also getting other people's audiences involved, and that really can expand your reach exponentially to massive amounts of people, especially if that other podcast is doing an amazing amount of.
How do I become a guest on someone's podcast?
Sure, there's so
I want to be a guest on someone's podcast.
So this is something that our new division, Premier Podcast Productions, is looking at getting into because we starting to get some experience, quite a bit of experience in this. So one way, there's directories out there that you can go online and you can fill out a profile, develop one, or have us help you develop a profile, and they will match you automatically with the podcast that will work for you. And there's a small fee for them to do it. You can become a member there is how you would do it. But developing that profile that entices someone to want to have you on the show is a big deal, and that's important. It has to be something that's interesting for their audience, and I think that's the key to doing this. You want to make sure that your information is keyed to their audience, and you want to make sure that that podcast group that you're going on fits your genre or talking points.
How do I locate a podcast group?
Well, you can go through our company, or you can go through many of them online and just look online for podcast. Well, the producers or podcast booking agencies.
Booking agency, interesting.
Yeah, so we fall under that category of booking. We can find guests or whatever. Matter of fact, there was one we did when we were doing our documentary. We were going to get Robert Kiyosaki on one of the documentaries, and when we reached out to their group, there was a laundry list of things that you had to fill out on the forms to see if he was worthy to be on your show. But when you're at that level and you have millions of people, you have to do that. He was going to be on the show, but apparently there was a conflict with one of the people that were already in the documentary. So he said he couldn't do it, but they were ready to do it because it had some luminaries in there that would fit his subject matter. Right. Yeah. But that's one end of it. From there, you get your profile to the point online that it looks very professional, and then you start reaching out to all these different directories is one really good way to do it. And they'll match you up. I mean, they'll hook you up, and you'll definitely get people right away that or go through a booking group that will take care of that for you, depending on the level that you want to go after. And so that's the way you would do it for the most part.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting that you have to think about your audience, what your specialty is,
right,
and how you want to reach them. So the podcast, or vodcast, I should say, really, gives you the opportunity to kind of become the expert in the field, if you will.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. It's marketing 101 to start. You've got to, what's your message, what's your audience, frequency, demographics. It's all pretty basic, but it's only just brought into the podcast world.
So you grow from starting a podcast into evolving, if it's successful,
into a brand, your own
brand, or even as an influencer that really attracts sponsors.
Right.
And I know the people in the lawn and landscape industry that have done that.
Speaking of which, what are you wearing, Denny?
This is from the Equip Expo in Louisville, Kentucky. And I only am wearing it today. It's a great show. And maybe a little plug for them, but it's the largest lawn and garden. I shouldn't say that. It's a little plug for them. It's the largest power equipment lawn and landscape show in the country.
Wow.
And it's
what did they used to be?
It's in October.
They used to have another name, didn't
It's called GIE Plus Expo.
Yeah, I remember that.
But it's rebranded. They had their biggest attendance last October.
Wow.
Okay. Ever.
Yeah.
And it's 3 days in Louisville, Kentucky. It attracts over 25,000 people.
Wow.
And these are all your lawn and landscape professionals, your lawn and garden equipment dealers, your manufacturers, A to Z. Anybody that makes anything that cuts things or slices things or grades things.
It's all there, huh?
They're all there. The major brands are there.
Now, I remember you talking to me about that. You telling me that there were some podcasters there that were actually, were they doing
They're
live?
influencers. They're influencers.
And they do live stuff right there?
That was a live cast. It was set up to broadcast it live from the show. And they had a panel.
Yeah, tell me about a live cast.
And it was a Q&A. Well, on the live cast, you have these influencers that are invited to be the speakers, but it's a Q&A as well. But each one can talk a little bit about the things they know about the industry to help a landscaper or a lawn and garden professional enhance their business. You know, it's perfect. It really is. You know, even if you do it on an individual basis and you're an expert in a certain industry, it's helping someone else. It's helping someone else enhance their business or providing them with information. So think about it. There were almost maybe more than 2,000 attendees at this live event, so that they could hear what these guys all had to say about their businesses and how they could help others with their business. So it's not necessarily saying, as a lawn and landscape professional, let's just say one of them, it's not about them hiring me. It's about them helping others, which is another thing. You know,
helping others.
You really are trying to help other people. It's fascinating. So, but being in a trade show environment is a great learning experience as well. Let's say that you are in a trade show world, but you don't want to be out on the floor because if you want to broadcast from there on your own, and these influencers do broadcast from the show themselves. You know, everybody's walking around with a gimbal and a camera and recording their experience at the show. So that's the other half of it, is the experience. But let's say I wanted to be at the show, but I really want to talk about what I learned at the show, but now I'm not there, so I'm not in Louisville anymore, but I could be. Well, let's say, you know, I attended a show, any show that you might be involved in the business world, and but you want to report on it when you get back on some of the things you've learned, some of the new products you've seen, some innovations, and you know, rather than taking the time at the show, you come back in your own environment, you set up a little green screen, like we have here. You set up a little green screen and you could put anything behind it, even the show background, so you could kind of present the environment of what you're talking about. Or if you're in Florida, for example, you might be wearing a flowered shirt and could be on a beach.
Exactly.
Whoa, that's cool. But no, what I'm talking about is you think about your environment, you think about your topic, you think about your subject, your audience, and how you want to reach them, and use that as your platform to do your broadcast. Very cool. Very cool. Anything else we want to talk about while we're here? I want to talk about how we get a sound out of, you know, we have a peacock sound, but
go ahead.
Did you ever hear a turtle?
What a turtle sounds like?
I don't know.
But I'm going to right now.
Let's see.
Hey, Siri, what does a turtle sound like?
Here's an answer from Wikipedia. The oblong turtle has a particularly large vocal range, producing sounds described as clacks, clicks, squawks, hoots, various kinds of chirps, wails, hoos, grunts, growls, low bursts, howls, and drum rolls.
Drum rolls?
We need a turtle in the band.
Well, yeah, really. We didn't quite get that. So, but definitely different sounds. So, all right, cool. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is rental space. So, you know, if you can't do a podcast internally, you know, you could always rent space. There are groups out there like ours, or any group really, that has space out there, and they're popping up everywhere where you can actually just go in and do your podcast in their space for an hour or two and then leave. You know, they got the equipment set up, they got everything in place, and, you know, you could do those kind of things, which, you know, so there's no reason you can't do a podcast nowadays. Well, you know, it's funny. I want to go back a couple of decades when video cameras were the thing. And, you know, families, dads were shooting their kids and so forth with these big, giant video cameras around their shoulders. And they wanted to edit them, but they didn't have the capabilities to do that. There were places that you could go and you could rent the space to edit the video with somebody maybe looking over your shoulder to help you do it a little bit, too. I don't remember that. It was out there. They were out there all over the country. Oh, wow. Yeah. Huh, interesting. Yeah, but again. It's sort of self-service edit. And now we have a phone that does all that for you. Yeah, it's amazing. And so, yeah, that's pretty crazy. Yeah. So but still, if you're recording videos, editing is the other part of the equation. You need to have a little bit of a know-how on just the basics of how to shoot and edit a video. Well, I mean, that's how we created our business. Everybody wants to make their podcast, but they don't want to edit them. That's correct. Except for us. We love editing the video. So it's like, well, we do it daily. Yeah, and that opens up a big avenue for a lot of people in the editing world that want to do that. And that reminds me, too, there are people or businesses that have longer videos that have a lot of good content in them, but you could take these videos and literally look for the nuggets in there and edit them down
very easily on existing videos as well.
Yeah,
getting them under a minute, getting them into short form, or breaking them down into short form videos. That you can use again online. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, great. I think that covers it for us today, and I think we had a good session with things. So thanks for coming by today and watching our show. We will plan on having another one out next week, and I hope you got a lot out of it.
Visit bvsfilmproductions.com or email info@bvsfilmproductions.com to find out more.
Let's face it, everybody loves to make podcasts and vodcasts, but nobody wants to edit them. Well, except for us. At Premier Podcast Productions, we professionally edit and distribute podcasts and vodcasts for companies around the world. Our process is simple and affordable, allowing you to stay focused on what you do best, developing great content and building your subscriber base. From recording and editing to final distribution and marketing, we can help every step of the way to make your podcast stand out and get the results it deserves. Contact us today at premierpodcastpros.com to take your podcast to the next level.